Hi, my name is Dr. Evelyn Lockhart. I'm a board-certified pathologist and blood banker, and I'm here to talk to you all today about blood. In this case, fake blood. I'm at Contrast Creative, and we wanted to show you how to make fake or simulated blood that you can use at home for something as simple as Halloween or something as involved as simulation in healthcare training exercises. Now, the blood that we're going to be making today can be made with ingredients you can get in your kitchen maybe, or at the very least, a grocery store nearby. And I'm going to walk you through these ingredients. The first ingredient we're going to be using is light corn syrup. This is a base that's used very frequently in fake blood that's used in movies and TV. And the reason is that it has a great viscosity or consistency to it that is very similar to human blood, depending on how you adjust it with water. The other nice thing about it is that it's clear, so you can color it with food coloring and adjust it and give it that nice, rich, deep red color. Another ingredient we're going to use is chocolate syrup. And this will take the red that you see with red food coloring. Sometimes, often it's too bright. Kind of like this. This does not look like blood, but if you darken it with things like chocolate syrup or different food colorings, you can give it a richer pigmentation. The other thing we're going to be using is evaporated milk. Now, we're adding evaporated milk to this because human blood or any kind of blood actually is opaque. It's not clear. And if you just use corn syrup, you're going to see it looks clear, sort of like runny jelly. We want to make sure that it has a nice opacity to it. The other things you're going to be using are just standard red food coloring. In this case, you'll probably need about 2 ounces of red food coloring at the very least, to be added to about 1 liter of regular light corn syrup. The other colors you're going to be needing for adjusting the final color is going to be about 1 ounce of yellow food coloring, a little bit of green, and maybe a little bit of blue. So let's get started. One thing I am going to recommend is, if you can, use a white bowl to mix the blood in. That helps you adjust the color as you go along. The other things I recommend is working on a surface that is either easily washable or is going to have a pad underneath. So if you have any splatters, it's not going to stain what's underneath. Similarly, you want to wear something to protect your clothes. This will dye your clothes, and you may not be able to wash it out, so be aware of that. Well, let's get mixing. The first thing you're going to do is put about 1/3 of this liter into the bowl, and to that you're going to add about 1/2 of a can, and this is a 12-ounce can of evaporated milk. Add about 1/2 of that to this. It's easier to mix the evaporated milk in when you only have a little bit, and that helps distribute it throughout. Now, when you're looking at blood and you're looking at the pigment of blood, there's one of the richest colors that you're going to see after the red is going to be yellow. You don't want to have your blood looking too purple, and when you mix red and blue, it's going to be purple. It's going to be on the slightly oranger side of a pure red, but not too much. And in mixing up this evaporated milk, what you can see happens with this is that you get a little bit of a yellow coloring to it. And that helps automatically adjust the red food dye that you're going to be adding in. So mix that up. And then at this point, you can add in the rest of your corn syrup. Okay. One tip I like to add too is that if you hold on to the empty container, you can actually decant or put the blood that you've mixed into this, and it makes a nice, stable vehicle for your fake blood, so you can carry it around wherever you need to go. Now, I like to thoroughly mix in the milk first to the corn syrup. before I start adding the chocolate. A really important thing to remember is that it's always easier to add a little bit more to adjust. It's really hard to back off the color. So before I start adding the chocolate syrup, which is next, I want to see how things are looking with this mixture first. You don't want to add too much chocolate syrup. I would recommend starting with about 2 tablespoons at a time and seeing how that goes. And I kind of eyeball it. If you want to measure it at home, you can. This will give it sort of the color of coffee with just a little bit of milk in it, like this. Now at this point, you've added the liter of corn syrup, about 6 ounces of evaporated milk, a couple tablespoons of chocolate syrup. Now you can go ahead and just straight up add 2 ounces of red food dye. Be careful when you first mix this in. When you add it on top, it can be a little splattery. Gently whisk at first. All right. Now you can, if you take a look at this color at this point, you can tell it's a little bit too red. Some red food dyes, I'll let you know, if you look at the ingredients on food dyes, sometimes it will be pure red food dye. Sometimes they'll have just a touch of blue. If there is just a little bit of blue in the red food dye that you've gotten, you're going to need to adjust the color more with the yellow. So here I have about 1 ounce of yellow food dye. You don't want to add all this all at once, but you can put in about, I'd say, 1/3 of an ounce at this point. As you add a little bit, you can see how it takes that really strawberry jelly color away from it, and it starts to give it a little bit more of an orange undertone. And that's good right there. One thing you can also be aware of as you're adjusting these colors is you want to be thinking about whether it's really bright arterial blood that you're looking for, or maybe something a little bit darker and more venous. If you're going for something darker, you'll want to add a little bit more blue to it. But at this point, this is looking pretty good. So I then adjust this with 8 drops of green food dye. And again, be very, in particular with the green, you need to be very sparing, because green can easily take your blood and make it a lot browner than you want it to be. If you start to see that it's looking too brown, then you can back off, maybe add a little bit of evaporated milk to it, or just try and compensate by adding a little bit more red food dye. Hopefully you won't have to entirely scrap the batch. So slow and steady wins the race. Okay, so you can see how it's really starting to look dark in here, and that's what you want. You want the blood to look, or the fake blood, to look lighter on a light background in a thin layer, but when it's in a big pool like this, you want to have a darker color. One thing that I find helpful in adjusting the color, and one reason why I like working on some of these pads, and you can get these are like pads you can get at a pet store or in the grocery store, is you can use this to look at the color of the blood that you have so far and adjust it. And that's looking pretty good. I think I'd like to have a little bit more red, and then we should be good to go. So you can add in about 20 drops of red at a time to adjust it. And this will really deepen and enrichen the color. There you go. Another tip you can use to make it look more Venus is maybe start off with a little bit more chocolate syrup in the beginning. Probably start with about 4 or 5 tablespoons. And at this point, you have a big bowl of fake blood that you can use for any Halloween fun or any simulation in healthcare. One last recommendation I like to make is before you use this for an actual use, an actual simulation, that you have the opportunity to spot test this on your models. Even though we're using very safe food-grade ingredients, it's always smart to check ahead of time for any allergic reactions that might be unanticipated. So that's about as easy as it is. 10 minutes to make a liter of fake blood. My name is Evelyn Lockhart here at Contrast Creative. Thank you so much for watching.